Okay, we're good to go.
Yeah, good morning, Adrian. Thank you for joining us for this Life After Lockdown series. Can we start by letting you explain what it is you do and whether or not that's changed as a result of the lockdown?
Absolutely, and I'm delighted to be here. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. I hope you don't have to subtitle this for some of your regular viewers, but anyway, we'll do our best. I actually transitioned into the workplace well-being space, as they call it, about 2 years ago. I've worked in industry for over 30 years, and an opportunity presented itself in 2018 for me to exit the company that I was with, and it gave me an opportunity to have a think about what it is I want to do. And I was really, really lucky because I was in a situation where I didn't have to do something because I can do it. It is because I want to do it. And the backstory is that basically I've had a lived experience of mental health issues, anxiety and depression in the main, going back over nearly 30 years now as well. So I actually said to myself, why don't I try and do something that allows me to use my business experience and my mental health experience so that I can reach out to others and make a difference. So I suppose that was the impetus behind me going into this space. So I set up a little company. You'll probably know the story. It's called Lizado Services because my wife is Liz and my nickname is Ado. So that's how we came to the name of the business. But in the main, what I do is I work with companies, organizations, anywhere where there's people really. And I give supports in terms of stress management, mindfulness. I do a lot of mindfulness, change management, which is actually quite topical at the moment, and then obviously mental health in the workplace. And that's something that's really mushroomed now. I think we can see that the initial focus of the government, both yours and ours and worldwide, has been about protecting lives. But the changes that have had to happen, how people's lives have been affected, that's not going to have, it's not going to just disappear, and people will have to learn how to deal with that. So I'm hoping that that's something that, again, I can bring to the fore. But in terms of asking what changed, I mean, I suppose like everybody else, I kind of went through a process. I had spent 18 months getting to know people in the business and putting myself about, if you like, so I could actually get bookings and so on. And I had a really nice diary lined up for 2020, boom, in the middle of March. So the whole traction was halted. And that was actually very difficult to accept because you guys know starting something new and getting stuck into something, you do all the heavy lifting. And then just when the fruits of your labor are there to be grasped, they're taken away from you. So I suppose that's how it felt. It's not the reality. But I think I probably went through 3 phases. The first one was the bewilderment of what's actually going on here. Is this real? Is it dangerous? Can we really all? You've seen the movies and heard all the, read books, I suppose, about pandemics, and is the human race going to be wiped out? So I think that's something that was uppermost in a lot of people's minds. And then that transition to uncertainty. What's actually going to happen now as the government came to terms with dealing with it. And for me, with my clients saying, sorry, we're putting people out of work. We're going to work remotely. We're not going to have groups where we can meet physically anymore. So hence the bookings were cancelled. So then it was, how long is this actually going to last? And that's almost been a daily, I suppose, thing that we do here is we try to limit the amount of news we absorb. So we have this little focal point of 6 p.m., which is when the national news is the main evening news in Ireland. So the family gathers around and we listen to how many deaths, how many new cases, what the total is, what the R number is, and all this sort of stuff. And then that's it, you know what I mean? We try and move on from then. And I think that's the last part then, is in terms of you come to a phase of adaptation. So you realize this is with us, it's not going away. It's had a big effect in the way we do things, but it's pointless really kicking against it. You kind of have to go with it. And I guess I got a little bit of a start in terms of that because of my mental health issues. I'm used to dealing with situations where, the perception is that it's hopeless and it's very, very difficult. But having that sense of, we keep moving forward, don't dally in the mire of what's going on around you. Just get stuck in and move on. So that's probably a very long-winded answer to your question about how things have changed. One other thing, though, I do want to mention is that one of the first things I did was I don't know how I got to know of their existence, but there's a very, very good charity in Ireland called Sea Change. So that's Sea Change. I think there's a UK equivalent called Time to Change. And there's a charity in the UK called Time to Change. And what it deals with is stigma. And stigma is a big issue in mental health. And like particularly for me, I felt it very, very strongly because I've always worked in heavily male-dominated industries. And, for a man to say he's not coping or he has some mental issues, that was a big barrier to getting help. And Sea Change is the Irish partnership for stigma reduction. So I work with them as an ambassador. And that's one role that, has actually increased in the period. Like I said to you earlier, that, people are really, really struggling as to how am I going to deal with this? What sort of supports are out there for me and so on. So it's a very, very rewarding role to have. And I think, there's a credibility there, obviously, with the lived experience and so on, and having worked in industries and so on. So, I just wanted to put that one in there just in terms of the mental health and, that people probably now are struggling, but are afraid to put their hand up. Yeah. And, it's this whole thing of it's okay not to be okay. And it's definitely okay to ask for help. So that's a really strong message I'd like to get out there to anybody who's listening.
I think that's really a really valuable point as well that you made there, Adrian, about the I think there'll be a lot of people who have been used to being, let's say, the main breadwinner, who obviously as a result of the pandemic have maybe lost their job and now having to rethink what they're going to do, and there's the pressure from other family members, the pressure that they put on themselves, and that the stigma, particularly you mentioned a male dominated workforce. I mean, I think particularly for men, it's more difficult to open up for men, for one thing. And also in our traditional, and it is changing obviously, but traditionally men think that it's their role to be the main income earner. That's fortunately not the case as much now, but even so, that's going to be, I think your role is going to be even more important.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And, allied to that is this whole business of men are supposed to be strong. Yeah. Big boys don't cry. Yeah. All this sort of stuff. And, I think innately and in their character, like females tend to talk an awful lot more than we do. Like when we would meet, we talk about anything except how we're feeling. Yeah. If you're into sport or you're into politics, it doesn't matter what it is. But, men tend to have very superficial conversations. And okay, you have a cohort, I think, of very close friends who, you may share a little bit more about. But I think females are much better at connecting and, basically sharing. We would see it as offloading. I think in the past I would have said, what's the point of me talking to Graham, because I'm just dumping all my problems on him. Do you know what I mean? So you carry this load that you don't need to, because you'd be delighted to say, listen, is there anything I could do? I had no idea this was going on. Why didn't you come to me sooner, kind of stuff. And I just think that men in particular, I mean, I do, and I don't want to generalize it into a gender thing, but I think everybody struggles. We all have mental health. But I think females have a little bit of a head start. But it's brilliant if men can feel empowered and not be afraid to show their vulnerabilities, because that's actually a strength, isn't it? So, yes. We need to get that message out.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm. So in terms of your actual role at the moment, I'm guessing that things have slowed down, that you're physically not doing things. What are you hoping to bring to these workplaces as soon as you're able to?
Yeah, and I think that's part of the uncertainty. Even people I know who are still in business, they're not really sure when they're going to go back, and if so, in what format. So, I think there's going to be a longer transition than, people are looking at these milestones and going, oh, great, by such and such a date, everything will happen. But, it's not going to be like that. And, particularly, I have a preference to be in front of people. Like this is wonderful because you're in the UK. So, normally speaking, we wouldn't be able to talk like this. But I would much prefer to meet you physically and have that conversation. And certainly for the subject matter that I deal with, I think it's much more powerful in the transmission of the message, where you can feel the energy in the room. So that's going to be different. So, for the moment, I have been doing webinars and, some little short video clips for like sea change, stuff like that, just to try and stay fresh. But it's very difficult to do. I imagine we're probably going to have to do something on a Zoom platform or something like that. But, I struggle to think, I suppose I want it to be the best it can be. And I just think Zoom is very limiting when it comes to the subject matter that we're dealing with. But, as we know, we're in unprecedented times. So needs must, half a loaf is better than none. So, I can see myself, doing stuff virtually. But, hopefully, when you get a situation like our government is talking now about gatherings of up to 50 people inside. Okay. So, I mean, that would be sufficient for me in terms of delivering a message. But I think a lot of the employers now have had a new experience with remote working.
Yes, they have.
And a lot of employees now are saying, actually, I prefer, because, particularly around Dublin, the traffic is just appalling. People have had to move outside of the city such that, and I mean, this is not new to you guys either. They're commuting an hour and a half each way every day just to get to their desk, and it's just such a waste of time.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating and it's so stressful, so that now you could be so much more productive when you're at home. Now, again, it'll suit some people better than others. Like if you have a small apartment that you're living in and you've 2 or 3 kids, you're not going to be able to dominate a space that you can work from. So I think everybody's grappling with those issues at the moment. But, I would hope to see, particularly having worked in business before, I think it's very, very hard to have a team spirit. That sense of, the collective as we drive forward. If people are all over the place, you know what I mean? So there needs to be a focal point, and whether that means people work maybe 2 or 3 days a week in the office and then 2 or 3 days at home, whichever way they want to swing it. I think that's important. And I do think that, as things improve, which I hopefully they will continue to do so, that there'll then be an opportunity to convene people, because genuinely, I think it'll help organizations to bring people together, socially distanced, whether it's the meter or the meter plus, in a room where, you can welcome everybody back to the business, thank them for what they've done in the intervening time, but also give them the confidence that the organization cares about them, has a return to work policy, and that, Mr. Yeates will be coming in to give you a talk on such and such to be of help to you. So I think it's going to be, for me, it's going to be slowly catchy monkey, I hope.
I think, if I may say, Adrian, just what comes across just in this short conversation so far is your sincerity and your ability to transmit your passion through the web. I mean, what you're saying, I think, is really powerful.
It works.
So it works for us on this level alone. Really. I'm sure that what you're doing will be able to be used in a similar way to anyone who wants to, tap into your experience and knowledge to help with their mental health management, mental health issues, stress, etc. So
that's very gratifying. Thank you so much for saying that, because it's a big concern of mine as to whether or not people get that sense, because it's not about me. It's about who's listening to me. I'm not the Dalai Lama or some great figure of enlightenment. I feel I'm very ordinary. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's part of the power of it is that, we have, and I'm sure you have in the UK, but certainly in the mental health space, we've a lot of well-known people, celebrities, from the music industry, from sport and so on, would be extremely well known. And they've been fantastic, and I call them icebreakers, because these are the first people that came out. But after a while, what I've noticed is people look and they go, well, hang on a minute, that guy played rugby for Ireland, he was a British and Irish Lion, blah, 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 blah. There's a bit of a disconnect there. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And then also, oh, he probably has all these supports around him, and probably plenty of money in the bank and so on. So there's kind of a disconnect. So what we spoke about earlier about starting the conversation, I think they do a really good job of doing that. So I'm not in any way against what they're doing, but I feel my role is like coming in behind in their wake. And, reaching out to people and say, look, I'm ordinary. I haven't done anything particularly fantastic, but I've learned to deal with certain issues, and I can share with you. I can explain to you some of the things that you're probably struggling with, but are afraid to ask. Do you know what I mean? And, that has a certain resonance for them. And, I think that's particularly important.
Yeah. Have you... by all means, don't answer this if you'd prefer not to, but have you brought this into play for yourself during lockdown?
Absolutely.
Have you? You have. Okay.
Absolutely. I think, you were asking about changes at work. I mean, changes personally. Yeah. Like one of the things that struck me was, and, I don't think this is uncommon either, but it's really important to emphasize it, is some of the really strong supports that I developed down the years, in periods of being well, you kind of forget about them. And luckily, I've been well for, a decent period of time now. And I think I just lost the connection there. And I think what COVID has done is, particularly for me, is walking, because we were initially limited to 1 kilometre. Yeah. And we're spoiled. We have a lovely public park up the road from us. So I would go up there and walk. And then, by walking, you're not driving, so you have more time to take in what's going on. Suddenly you can hear birds. Yeah. There were squirrels, believe it or not. Then you see, the earlier part, you see some of the plants coming up, the daffodils coming and so on. And suddenly you find this connection with nature. Yes. And what it's doing is it's actually sucking you into the now, which is a big thing that I would always espouse. But like I said, I kind of lost touch with. And that brings me on then to the mindfulness that, I used to be I used to practice daily. And then it kind of got to a couple of times a week, and then it got to nothing. So, I've reconnected with that, which has been great because it's part of what I do. And, also in the downtime, I've upskilled. So I've taken on, I did a kind of a refresher on mindfulness. I've done an additional course on stress management. Do you know what I mean? And I'm always reading what's topical at the moment and just trying to stay sharp. But for me personally, yes, I have. I've used, I suppose, reacquainted myself. And it's one of those things, about doctor, heal thyself. Everybody thinks doctors don't get sick. So, if you're a mental health ambassador, you must be bulletproof. But you're not. And it brought home to me the fact you got to practice what you preach. Yeah. And so that's been very rewarding for me to come back in touch with that, which is really, really nice.
That's really, I know we were both probably thinking at the same time, that's so much like how we've experienced it as well. The walks, the admiring the flowers and
seeing it,
nature,
and hearing it
and the
in
animals,
a way we haven't before.
And we were just talking about it yesterday, that it's been really therapeutic all through this period. And also, it's not that we were ignoring it before, but it's been brought into more relief. It's almost like it's become like vibrantly coloured, whereas before it was kind of on the edges of your attention.
I think I suppose one of the key things that I've noticed is the change in pace.
Yes.
Yeah.
We, as a family, we love going. My wife's family are from the west of Ireland, in County Clare, and I always love going over there because it's right on the Atlantic coast. But it's very rural, and everybody has time to talk to everybody. The what do you call it? The broadband signal is wogus, so it's very hard to get onto technology. So you just find yourself, and we used to go for long walks along the sea, get a fantastic appetite, and you come back and you're eating really, really nice food. And that's something as well, I think. We can actually taste our food now.
Oh yeah.
Instead of, you know, when you're in the busy of life, you tend to just inhale your dinner and then you're gone, you know. You have no, so this whole mindfulness thing of, you know, for us as well, because of the lockdown as well, it's kind of brought back the old thing of the little shops, you know, instead of going to the big multinational, you're going to the baker, the butcher, the candlestick maker, and, you know, you're coming home, and like preparing food is an experience in itself. You know, a couple of the kids, they get involved, they like doing that. Well, they're not kids now, they're young adults. But, you know, it's part of the fun is preparing it. And, you know, we're eating a lot more vegetables. I'm actually eating fish, which is anathema to me. But, you know, and I'm a converted porridge man every morning, porridge with fresh fruit. So, you know, and all those things, but like I say, it's just the flavors. I did spy you were out early this morning in the garden picking raspberries.
We were, well, I was, yeah.
And when I was growing up in Dunboyne, where I'm originally from, there was a fruit farm in the village, and they grew raspberries. And that was a summer job for us, was picking the raspberries.
Oh, right.
And it's one of those things, again, that when I have raspberries now, that whole evocative thing of being transported back so many years, like just the taste of one raspberry, you know, so it's like that mindful thing, you know, the raisin exercise or whatever you might want to do. But raspberries particularly, they just transport me back. And like, they're so good for you as well. But, you know, you get all those additional benefits. So it's really, really nice.
So are there any of these things, I'm kind of hoping the answer is yes, but any of these things that you want to take on onwards into whatever comes next?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I suppose it'll be only a question of how long I can keep it going. But, you know, I think for me, there's been a tremendous affirmation to me through COVID of what's important in my life. And I have to put health at number one, because the old oxygen mask story, if you're not there for yourself, you can't be for others. So, you know, you can't serve from an empty vessel, that kind of thing. So that's really, really important. The next thing is family. I mean, I have family living, I have a sister in Wales who's actually a frontline nurse. I have a brother up in Scotland, in Glasgow, and I have a brother in Germany. And he's actually quite vulnerable. He's a double cancer survivor. So he's, you know, cocooning and all that sort of stuff. And my mum's in her 80s now, and she lives alone. My dad passed away 4 years ago. And, you know, like a good Irish family, I'm one of 9. So, you know, where family is so big. And then my wife, Liz, she's from a family of 8. So, you know, we practically have a village between us. But to make contact with people, and, you know, that's one of the things. Actually, a very interesting thing that I've done is, and I don't know why, I probably read it somewhere at some stage. I've written a number of old-fashioned handwritten letters to people that are important to me, who have had some influence on my life, but I've never actually thanked them. Or I've never acknowledged what they've done, you know. Yeah. And I have no idea, because they've actually only gone out this week, so I haven't heard anything yet back. And there's only a small number of them. But I just thought it was a really important thing to do, because we all know, and I mean, this is the thing about COVID. I mean, I know they say it's people who have underlying issues and blah, 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 but, you know, anyone at any time can be taken from us. Yes. And to think that, you know, you have this admiration or gratitude for them, but you've never expressed it. So, you know, I think it's really important for them to actually get it. So I hope they get that warm feeling. And also, like when we were kids, oh, there's a letter in the post for me. And that it's handwritten. They might need someone to bloody well read it for them. Because I don't write a lot now, so it's pretty much scrawl. But that was brought on by a confluence of the pandemic and my own sense of, you know, what I think is important in life. So, you know, they're mostly family or family related people. So family is huge. And I suppose Is there anything else? Oh yeah, contentment. That's a biggie for me. I remember hearing a song years ago. For the younger viewers out there, they'll have probably heard of Shania Twain. Yeah. She's got a song, and one of the lines in it is, "It's not getting what you want, it's wanting what you've got."
Oh yeah.
And I think that, you know, for me, I'm probably turning into a socialist or something, but it's really exposed the worst end of capitalism. And you only have to look at Donald Trump, and, you know, we won't spend any more time on it than that. But this endless rush for materials, money, you know, instant gratification. I'm done with all that. You know, I'm quite happy to walk up the park and watch the squirrels and the flowers growing. And, you know, it's not that you're checking out or whatever, but there's no real need for all of that. I mean, it just generates selfishness. And you know, that greed is just abhorrent to me now. So, you know, just being comfortable with what you have and recognizing what you have. So gratitude, I'm sure you guys recognize is a big thing. I created this little, what do you call it, an abbreviation for some of the talks that I do. And the way I have of remembering it is, everybody knows who JFK was. This is his lesser known cousin, GFK. Okay? G is gratitude, F forgiveness, and K kindness.
Yes. Yeah.
And what I say is, if you can do one of those every day, you know, your life will be richer. You know, people often keep gratitude diaries, you know, and that's really, really important, you know, just to let you know how, you know, because we have a garden. So many people don't have a garden, and when you can't go anywhere, or if you have small kids, like I said earlier, so, you know, we can be so dismissive of what we have around us, because we're always looking far ahead to what can I get next. So I just like, I like GFK. It's a nice little, easy to remember, and, you know, not easy to do, particularly forgiveness.
Yes.
And particularly for men. I rarely start a sentence with "I'm sorry." So anyway,
that's absolutely wonderful what you've said there. I mean, some quite beautiful things. The thing about the writing the letters was I got quite emotional when you said that, because that really that is a lovely thing to do, and I think anyone else watching this will probably feel the same, I'm sure. And I think this, for me, just listening to you now has been my own therapy, Adrian. You know, you've got a lot of wisdom there, and we've known each other for a long time. What,
4 years than we care to remember.
Yeah, probably 37, I think, 37 years, as has Annette as well.
Yeah, we met aged 5.
Yeah, that's right.
That's it.
Yeah,
I was struggling with the numbers. Anyway, we probably should bring this to a close now, but just before we do, if you'd like to let people know how they could get in touch with you, you've got a website, or? I
have. It's very easy. It's lizado.ie, lizado.ie. And actually, my other contact details are there. So my email address is there, and phone number as well. And you can see some of the stuff as well in terms of the little webinars and, you know, the type of programs that I do. So that's probably the best place.
Right.
Perfect.
Okay. Thanks, Adrian. So what we'll do is we'll start the recording. If you'd just like to stay on a moment, and we'll kind of finish off informally with you.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank
you.
Super.
Thank you.